Is your blood sugar out of control? Well, we are going to give you 5 foods today that might help and 5 others to avoid because they may KO your A1C. Welcome to the Exam Room Live, brought to you by the Physicians Committee. Hello, I am the weight loss champion, Chuck Carroll. Thank you for raising your health IQs with us coast to coast and around the world. More than 150 countries, making this one of the most consumed nutrition podcasts anywhere on the planet today. And we are lowering your blood sugar. That is the goal. And our guest has been, in her words, knee deep in diabetes research. She sent me a message and she said, hey, what if we talked about the key foods for reducing your A1C? And I said, hey, that's an A+ idea. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you the 5 foods to eat that can help lower your A1C and then 5 others to leave off of your plate, which that's also key for long-term success, I should say. So what are the ones that are really going to throw you for a loop, the ones to keep off the plate? You're about to find out. And our guest today is a friend of the show. She is a registered dietitian. She is a Navy veteran. She is a wife. She is a mother. She is an all-around good human being who has cleared an enormously packed schedule to join us here today. Registered dietitian Steph McBurnett is the holder of the keys to our healthy city today. And if there's a question you have for Steph, go ahead, drop it in the comments or in the chat. We're going to get to as many as we can when we open up the dietitian's mailbag in just a little bit. So let's get to it and welcome Steph McBurnett back to the Exam Room Live. Thanks for being here, Steph.
Oh my gosh, the pleasure is all mine, Chuck. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I know that you have a lot on your plate, so I don't want to waste anybody's time. Let's get right into it. But before we get into the 5 foods, I want to ask what the difference is between the A1C number and what the difference is between that and the regular blood glucose number that somebody would get with a finger prick right after they eat.
Exactly. So the hemoglobin A1C is essentially an average of your blood glucose levels for 3 months. So it really gives doctors and dietitians not just a single snapshot of like, what did you eat this morning and how did it affect you? Really how you've been eating in the last 3 months. So it rises and falls rather slowly. It takes a while, but yeah, it's going to give your doctor a good idea of what you're eating and how your blood glucose is trending over time. And as most of us know, but maybe not everyone, high blood glucose levels can really damage a lot of our organs. You know, it can damage your kidney, your eyesight, your nerves, your heart. So we really want to keep our blood glucose levels pretty steady within the normal range.
All right, yeah. I mean, there's so much to it. So I would think that there's a great value in seeing that 3 month, the number after 3 months as opposed to just, minute to minute kind of day to day thing. It kind of gives you a better overall gauge of where the person's at. So let's get into this. I think that this is why a lot of people have been tuning in right now. 5 foods for lowering A1C. When you make your lists of 5, they're always fantastic. So what are your 5 fantastic foods for lowering A1C? What's number 1 on the list, Steph?
Well, so I had a lot of fun with this, Chuck, and it turns out that all my favorite foods start with the letter B. So this is going to be the B's, the 5 foods, all my, my B's and stuff like that. But the first one is going to be black beans or just beans in general. Beans are an extremely healthy food. They're full of protein. They're full of fiber, all that soluble fiber, which actually helps build a healthy gut microbiome, which also in turn can affect your blood glucose levels and your insulin sensitivity. Beans are a great substitution for higher fat foods like animal products or meat or processed meats. Substituting just a small amount of plant protein or beans for animal protein can lower your blood glucose levels as well because they're so low in saturated fat. And then the reason I said black beans is there's actually some studies that show that anthocyanins, which black beans, since they're of their dark color, they're very high in anthocyanins. Anthocyanins have been shown to be really good for regulating your blood glucose levels as well. So number one on my list, you have to go with beans. And I love black beans, so they were number one. And actually, studies show that diabetics who have beans in the evening for their evening meal, they actually have better glucose levels the next day. So beans are not just good for the few hours after you eat them. It's for 24 hours. You're going to have better glucose regulation. So I had to put beans as number one.
And I have to ask you this, though. A lot of this, I'm sure, also depends on how the beans are prepared. If they're prepared with ham hock, fatback, lard, things like that, I can't imagine that the person's going to see nearly as good of a benefit as it would be if these were just traditional, kind of just spiced up nicely, but low-fat beans.
Exactly. So the root cause of diabetes is actually insulin resistance. And we've found that over epidemiological studies and clinical trials that it's actually an accumulation of fat in our muscle and liver cells that's kind of gumming up the works and not letting insulin work the way it's supposed to work. So looking for low fat foods, keeping your overall fat low in your diet is what's actually going to create, you're going to become insulin sensitive, and you're going to be able to bring down your blood glucose levels fast and furious, or, just like a typical healthy adult would. So you don't want to cook your beans with ham hock, because that kind of negates some of the health benefits. That beans are low in fat, high in fiber. And if you're just adding fat in other ways, you're kind of messing with your long-term health there. You're going to be almost increasing your insulin resistance.
Lower the A1C fast and furious. I'm going to call you Steph Diesel after that. That's pretty cool. What's number two on the list? We've got black beans. What's next?
Number two is blueberries. Another B. And this one, if you've been a diabetic for a long time, back in the day, they were told to avoid carbs, right? And avoid fruit. But studies are showing that fruit is actually great for diabetics. Even the American Diabetes Association and other diabetes organizations recommend not avoiding fruit. And blueberries and berries in general are actually low on the glycemic index, which means they don't spike your glucose high at all. They have tons of fiber, tons of phytonutrients. And there even was a study where they took individuals with type 2 diabetes. Half of the participants were given the equivalent of 1 cup of blueberries a day, and the other half were given a placebo. And they found that just after 8 weeks that they were able to lower, and they didn't make any other diet changes, right? They didn't tell them to do anything else, no other diet changes, that the group that had the blueberries every day, they were able to lower their hemoglobin A1C, lower their triglycerides, lower their liver enzyme. And that was just after 8 weeks. So, berries have tons of health benefits to them. And again, I'm going to go back to anthocyanins. These researchers actually pinged anthocyanins as one of the factors why blueberries, were so beneficial for lowering A1C. And so blueberries are very high in anthocyanins, so they make it as number 2 on my list.
I hear so many good things about blueberries for so many reasons, and so I'm almost not surprised in the least whatsoever that we have ourselves blueberries on this list as well. I mean, it's good and good for you, as my dad used to say growing up. So I'm glad that this makes the list. A lot of people are probably wondering whether you get the same type of benefit from frozen as you would fresh, though, Steph. What do we know there?
Well, actually, frozen, the blueberries are frozen at peak freshness, at peak ripeness. So you're actually freezing it in time. And so you might even get more benefits from frozen blueberries versus ones that have been sitting on the shelf for a week or 2. So there is really, I would say, no difference between frozen. I use frozen berries in my overnight oats every night, and then eat them every morning. So they're just as good frozen as fresh.
All right, we've got blueberries, we've got black beans. That brings us to number 3 on the list. What you got cooking up for us here?
Number 3 probably won't surprise you, and you've heard it by many dietitians and doctors on this podcast. It's going to be broccoli. So, broccoli is a cruciferous vegetable. It's rich in vitamins, fiber, phytonutrients, and it helps with help fight multiple diseases. But one of those is type 2 diabetes. It helps lower your blood sugar levels. Broccoli also has like this unique property of sulforaphane, which stimulates the production of an enzyme that protects blood vessels. So as you've been living with high blood glucose levels, which has been damaging your organs, actually sulforaphane is going to go in and kind of repair some of those blood vessels. Also, broccoli has a compound called chromium, which interacts with insulin maintenance and is really good for optimal blood sugar levels as well. So, broccoli has so many benefits, but it definitely has a benefit to diabetes in particular. They're high in flavonoids, which is another antioxidant, which is anti-inflammatory, which also helps with, reducing that stress that goes on your body when you do have an elevated A1C.
All right, 3 cheers for broccoli. And I love the fact that broccoli is also a vitamin C powerhouse. That never, ceases to amaze me, the fact that you can get vitamin C from broccoli the same way that you would an orange, which is what people turn to initially. But you know what? I think that, go for the greens, people. Get your broccoli on. And, broccoli and black beans, they go together quite nicely, I should say.
Make a little bowl. You got all the different components and have blueberries for dessert.
I like it. But you know what? There's room on the plate for 2 more. So what else do you have?
So the next one on my list that we can add to our bowl is actually going to be barley. So barley is actually a type of whole grain. It is kind of like a rice, but it actually has more fiber than rice. So it has a slower digestion, and brown rice and rice are, they might spike your glucose a little bit more. Barley is really dense with fiber, so it's going to keep that glucose rise very gentle on your body. But it's also rich in vitamins and minerals. It has, again, I mentioned fiber, but it has fiber. It has manganese and selenium. It has good amounts of copper, B1, chromium, which I mentioned. It has the same component that broccoli has, which is chromium, which is really great for blood glucose levels, and phosphorus and magnesium and niacin. So barley, just like whole grains, we actually see in studies that whole grains have been beneficial for diabetics. Everyone thinks diabetics, they should avoid carbs, but actually the studies are showing that whole grains, high fiber foods are actually beneficial for people with diabetes and actually can help improve A1Cs and their blood glucose levels.
All right. Now, I have to ask this question just from the guy standpoint, because Super Bowl time is upon us. A lot of people are tuning into the TV and they want to have a cold beverage with that. Not necessarily saying it's the exam roomies who are joining us here, but I know that a lot of us, if we take this conversation to our significant others who might enjoy that frosty beverage, will say, there's barley in beer. So is somebody able to get that same benefit from drinking beer? Let's just settle that debate right now, Steph.
Yes. No, even though, yes, you are correct that barley is what's used in making a lot of different types of beer. They're not, you're not eating those whole intact grains. You're kind of just drinking the residue of it. So you're not getting the fiber. You're really not getting any of the other nutrients that come from eating whole intact barley. So I hate to disappoint, but no, beer is not on my list of 5 foods for reducing your A1C.
Good to know. Good to know. Just had to ask.
I know.
And that brings us to number 5, the 5th B on your best for A1C list.
So number 5 is going to be bell peppers. You had mentioned vitamin C earlier, but bell peppers are actually, they have twice the amount of vitamin C as citrus fruits. And vitamin C does so much in your body. It helps with immunity, it helps with skin health, and it helps with blood glucose regulation. And these bell peppers are not only low on the glycemic index, so they're not going to spike your blood glucose levels, but they have that special compound that I was talking about earlier, anthocyanins, are actually found in bell peppers, and they can, they actually are very beneficial for blood glucose levels. I mean, and also bell peppers are delicious. They're a great add to any meal. They're a great snack. They have phytochemicals and antioxidants. And so they actually help repair any damage that has been done from having chronic high blood glucose levels or blood sugar levels.
You know, what we have here is a really healthy plate that we've built. The black beans, the blueberries, the broccoli, the barley, the bell peppers there. And again, so when I think bell pepper, for whatever reason, I go to green. A lot of the same benefits can be found in red, orange, yellow, etc.
Yes, actually, the different colors, they do have a little bit different of components. So the red and orange are going to be very high in vitamin C. I mean, all of them are going to be high in vitamin C, but they have a little bit more. Then you have the orange, which is going to be higher in vitamin A, kind of the orange coloring. It's going to have those beta carotene, a little more of the beta carotenes, which is, comes from that orange color. But green are just as healthy as well. And the dark kind of purple ones will have even higher amounts of those anthocyanins I was talking about. So all the colors, they all get a thumbs up from me. I find like whatever bell pepper color is your favorite, that's the one I want you to eat.
Yeah, I think so. Like if you feel good, like especially February starts tomorrow, red bell peppers, the month of love. If you want to go red here. If you want to go green, you can go green, whatever you want. There's really not a bad choice here. So again, let's recap. You've got black beans, blueberries, broccoli, barley, and bell peppers. Absolutely phenomenally delicious, all going to help you lower your A1C. So that, again, the A1C is over the 3-month duration. What would somebody who eats this type of plate, what though could they expect to see in terms of their immediate blood glucose levels? Would we see that spike with it the same way that they would if they were to go to, say, a fast food restaurant? Would these numbers be a little bit lower? What could somebody expect here?
Yeah, so all the foods on my 5 list are going to be whole foods. So they're really not going to, it's the natural process of digesting carbohydrates is for your body to break them down into glucose or sugar, put that into your blood, and then shuttle it to your muscles and liver. So that is the natural digestive process of carbohydrates. So yes, you will get a slight rise in your blood glucose, and that is normal and that is healthy. But these are whole foods that have tons of fiber. They're not going to be spiking your blood glucose levels out of control. They're going to be keeping them right in, the healthy range under 200 milligrams per deciliter if we wanted to get into the nitty gritty. And then after 2 hours, your blood glucose, for a healthy adult should be below about 140 milligrams per deciliter. And we can go through all that if you want, Chuck. But those are kind of like the numbers can get a little bit confusing.
Yeah, I got you. Let's save that for another show because we still have a lot to get through here today. I want to take a couple of questions really quickly from the Dietitian's Mailbag and the Exam Roomies who are watching live right now on YouTube and on Facebook. Let's start with Karen Price, sent this in at 11:58, an early bird to the show today. Karen writes, judging from the title, does this mean that these 5 foods will also be good for one's triglyceride numbers?
That's exactly right. We see that foods that are good for diet, your blood glucose are also going to be really healthy and good for your cholesterol levels, your triglyceride levels, and your lipids in general. So that's the good thing about kind of whole food plant-based is it's not just good for one disease or one kind of health issue. It really runs the gamut from brain to skin to teeth to heart. So yes, I would say this 5 you can definitely implement in your life for triglycerides as well.
All right. And if you have a question for Steph, go ahead, post that in the comments or in the chat right now. We're going to get to as many as we can here today. Let's stuff that Dietitian's Mailbag. Before we get to the 5 to avoid, though, one more. This one from Superfood Parents at 1209 says, in addition to naming these 5 best bee foods, is there a certain preparation that makes them even more nutritious? So we're talking steaming versus air frying or boiling, for example. We talked about not adding fat to it, but what about the actual cooking process?
So the cooking process versus steaming and boiling, those are going to break down some of that fiber. And so you will have, it's almost pre-digesting your food. And so there will be lower fibers. You will get a little bit of a higher rise in your blood glucose because you're going to be digesting a little faster than you would if you ate a raw piece of celery, right? Cooked celery versus raw celery, or cooked versus broccoli versus raw broccoli. But you're still not going to see the crazy high spikes that you would if you're consuming other kind of highly processed foods. But I will say with frying, that's a different story, right? So frying, or I guess it says air frying. So air frying, you definitely can use all those different cooking methods, but you will be kind of pre-digesting, breaking down a little bit of those fibers, which for some people, they need that. They have sensitive teeth. I know older individuals, chewing can become an issue. So I would rather, you can cook these 5 foods and they're going to be just as healthy for you. There just would be a little bit more of that tough fiber, that insoluble fiber, if you didn't cook them with those different methods.
Let's do a quick roll call before we move on. The Exam Roomie roll call. We got people all over the world tuning in and just soaking up this information, raising their health IQ, Steph. Roxanne is joining us from the Netherlands. We have Garden of the Warrior from Kentucky. We've got Lee in Lubbock, Texas. That's alliterative. I like that. Lee in Lubbock. We've got Jennifer in Peoria, Arizona, Sharina in USA, North America. Thanks for clarifying that. Cool. Oh, here we go. Tanju is joining us from Tasmania, Australia. I would love to do an episode of the Exam Room in Australia. That would be absolutely phenomenal. Tracy is watching in Uganda. Sheila is in Tennessee. Do you ever just get a kick out of the fact that we reach so many people through the Physicians Committee all around the world, Steph?
It's crazy. It blows my mind. It's all because of you, Chuck. You are an amazing host, and you are just so gracious and such a amazing person, in front of the camera and off. So everyone's here because you've made it such a good show. And I will be at that show in Australia. I'll just say that. Can I come?
All are welcome. All are welcome. But this is not for me. I do this show for everybody else. I'm just living out a dream. And I want to say hi also to Trisha Crisp, who's watching in Ontario. By the way, I'm going to be up in Ontario, Toronto, next month, the end of March, actually, for the Planted Expo. And I'll actually be doing an episode of the Exam Room live with Dr. Michael Greger. So there's some big scoop there. There you go, breaking a little bit more news. So stay tuned for details for that, so you can join us live up in Toronto at the end of March. All right, so we've got our 5 best. Now let's do some damage. What are the killer bees for A1C, Steph? What's number 1 on your list here? And are they even bees, or am I just making an assumption here?
They don't all start with B. I really tried, but I love that you just called them killer bees. I just love that. So we're gonna get into it. And right off the bat, number 1 to leave off your plate is gonna be animal products. I know that's a wide range, but I mentioned earlier that fat accumulation within the muscle cells can lead to insulin resistance and lead to diabetes. And animal products, from meat to milk to eggs, they all have higher amounts of fat compared to plants. So even the leanest, chicken breast has about 23% of its calories from fat. And like a white tuna has about 20% of its calories from fat. And you compare that to eating apples, lentils, beans, even rice and potatoes, they all have less than 5% of their calories from fat. And plus they have all those, they're high in fiber and all those antioxidants and all those other healthy properties. So it really, I know this is kind of a big, very wide range, but I'm going to say either avoid or limit as much as possible the animal products. Research shows that people who avoid animal products are found to have less fat in their cells and are at much less risk of developing diabetes.
Good to know.
And plant-based. Oh, sorry.
No, go. I thought that we were at a stopping point. That's all right. You go right ahead. Keep bestowing the information on us.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of research pointing towards this, and I was going to go through a few of them. So plant-based diets improve insulin sensitivity, in part by reducing the amount of fat. We kind of just talked about that. And in the Adventist Health Study 2, it showed that an omnivorous diet, if I can say that correctly, was associated with roughly double the risk of diabetes compared to those emitting animal products. So that was kind of a big one. There's also a research study out of Harvard School of Public Health that stated each serving of processed meat a day was associated with a 46% risk of developing type 2 diabetes, and each serving of just red meat, just regular meat, was associated with 24% of higher risk. Harvard also did another study that pointed towards fish bringing up higher risk. And it's not just the fat, the protein in animal products as well. There's been studies that show individuals that eat large amount of animal protein have a higher risk of diabetes as well. So I'm going to just put that one out there as number one.
I mean, that is a pretty broad one, but you know what? It's so true for so many reasons. Not to mention also the association with so many other chronic illnesses. You talk about processed meat, right away my mind goes to colorectal cancer, I mean, my goodness gracious. All right, so that is number one, but Steph, we've got 4 to go. What's number 2 on the list?
So we talked about, the root cause of diabetes being fat accumulation in the cells. And we also talked about how animal products are higher in fat. Well, there are plant foods that are high in fat. So number 2 on my list is actually coconut oil, coconut products. Although it's a plant-based food, it's 80 to 90% fat. And it's also saturated fat, which is kind of the inflammatory fat that has been linked to heart disease and stroke and other chronic diseases. So I recommend avoiding all, not only coconut oil, but coconut products. So some individuals might say, it's a whole food. I'm just having the shavings of coconut, or I'm just eating the meat of coconut. Even coconut meat is 89% saturated fat. And researchers have linked saturated fat to the onset of type 2 diabetes. And so it's just, I know that we talked about animal products, but there are plant-based foods or vegan foods that also contribute to diabetes and high A1Cs.
Adeline here, filling up the dietitian's mailbag. This one just came in right now at 12:30. Is topical use of coconut okay? So maybe to soothe the skin. A lot of people, though, they're worried about osmosis and it just seeping in and doing damage that way. What are your thoughts?
I think on your skin, coconut oil is oil. It can create like a barrier if you do have some dry skin, just kind of how Vaseline does. So for me, coconut oil is okay to use in your hair or on your skin. So just don't eat it.
do you put a little in the hair for a little bit of shine and that tropical smell? I
think people have put it on their hair to like let it sit and soak in a little bit of moisture, like almost like a mask for their hair, like a deep conditioning.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would rather do that than, I know back in the day, my mom would tell me that they would put mayonnaise in their hair and that would act as some sort of a conditioner. And I could not get on board with that plan at all. It just seemed like, no. Has anybody else, I'm just curious, just for grins, anybody who's watching right now, has anybody else ever heard that? Because I just think that is gross with a capital G. Anyway, let's move on to number 3 and forget about mayonnaise in the hair. Sorry for that crazy random aside. I'm just saying, number 3 on the list is what?
That is wild. I've never heard of that.
It's so bad. It's so bad.
Number 3 is going to be just vegetable oils or oils in general, right? Added oils. So even if they're not animal oils like lard or butter, even oils can contribute to raising our A1C. If you're trying to keep, you're trying to get rid of that fat in your cells, you're trying to keep your overall fat very low, added oils, even from vegetables, is going to just really bump up your total for the day of fats. And oil is 100% fat. You take an olive or peanut, you squeeze out every last drop of fat, and then you're using that in a myriad of different ways. Also, if you're trying to keep your total fat low, oils are very pervasive in the diet. They're in fried foods, they're in salad dressing, they're in packaged foods, They're in frying, baking, roasting. So they can add up pretty, even if you don't think you're consuming oils, they can add up pretty quickly, and your total fat for the day can add up pretty quickly. So I wanted to put this on the list to have everyone be aware that oils is something that you should probably leave off your plate for to keep your insulin sensitivity very sharp.
All right, but the question has to be asked then, because there is very much a mixed bag of research when it comes to olive oil in particular. A lot of people think that olive oil is very much, at the very least, a heart healthy food. And that it carries a lot of other health benefits as well. Obviously, lots of fat in there, but specific to A1C numbers, what do we know about olive oil?
Yeah, so really all of them are 100% fat. Now there are different percentages of saturated fat versus monounsaturated and polyunsaturated, different types of fats. And there is some research that shows kind of monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats, there's some health benefits. But when we're talking about insulin resistance, which is fat accumulation in our cells, we really want to keep our total number as our total for the day of fat as low as possible. And when you're having a tablespoon here, you're drizzling here, you're having way more than you even think you're having. And that will actually outweigh any benefits that you may be getting from the polyphenols in olive oil. So, there has been a few studies that show some benefits from olive oil and maybe a few of the other oils, the polyunsaturated oils. But when you're having so much and it's in everything that you're consuming, it is definitely going to still contribute to insulin resistance.
All right. Really quickly, jumping back to the mayonnaise debate. A lot of people say, yeah, they've heard of that, they've tried it, and it works. And I'm just not going to budge, though. I still think it's gross, and there are better ways to condition your hair, people. There just have to be better ways to condition your hair. Carla, by the way, says that it is good as a deep conditioner, but you wash it out. It is not a leave-in conditioner, right? So don't load up on Hellman's and then leave your front door. Like, no, get it out. Eesh,
I feel like that would clog the drain. I feel
like it would just clog everything. There's no good that can come from mayonnaise in your hair, Steph. There's just no good. There's just, oh my goodness gracious. All right, number 4 on the list. What do you have for us?
So number 4 is kind of intuitive. It is processed sweets. It is the cookies, the donuts, the cakes, the Twinkies, the snack pastries. And when we think about blood glucose, those foods have very refined sugars in them, and they're going to spike your blood glucose high. But what they also have in these cookies and sweets is a ton of fat, right? Cookies come with butter, cakes come with a cup of oil, and that is going to raise your A1C. That's going to, in the long run, cause more insulin resistance. So kind of, this is a twofold. It's the kind of this added sugar that we don't need. Not that glucose is a bad thing, right? We talked about this before, that healthy carbohydrates, they get broken down into sugar and go into our blood, our blood for transportation to our muscle cells. But these processed sweets is this high glycemic index sugar that's just spiking our blood glucose. So it kind of hurts in that aspect. And then it's also adding all this fat with it. So processed sweets is going to be my number 4.
All right, and there's a big difference between like the processed kind of brownies that you would get and, these just mixes at the store, or the pre-bought or pre-made ones that you can buy right away. But then also on our website, pcrm.org/recipes, there are some amazing whole food brownie recipes there. There are these raspberry fudgy brownies that were introduced to me very early on in the exam room's existence that I think are just amazing. And man, let me tell you, these things have black beans in them too.
Yes.
So they're working for you. So when somebody tells you that you can't eat the foods that you love while still eating a healthy diet, say, no. You absolutely can. Here's just a recipe to make your favorite foods as healthy as humanly possible so they can work for you instead of against you. I love that. I say it so often, but I absolutely adore that about eating this way, the creativity that comes with it. You never have to go without, Steph. You never have to go without.
Exactly. Black bean brownies are so delicious. And because they have the black beans in them, they're going to actually really blunt that glucose spike. And then remember what we said, beans, they're healthy the next day. They're going to keep that blood glucose staying steady, a steady rise and steady fall. So
Yeah.
I'm all on board for the black bean brownies.
Choo choo,
I
climb
should have
on
made
board.
that. I should have made that one of my five.
Dense as anything, man. I mean, super dense. Those things are heavy. They're vroom, man. It's like you put it in your hand and your arm just falls. It's amazing how heavy those things are. So good. All right, so we've got all animal products. We've got coconut. We've got oils. We've got processed sweets. Bring us home with number 5 on the foods that jack up the A1C list.
So number 5 is probably everyone knows as well. It's sugar sweetened beverages. So there actually was a study in 2015 that saw that a daily serving of sugar sweetened beverages was associated with about a 13% higher risk of developing diabetes. So this is your sodas, your juices, your teas that have all this added sugar in them. And although glucose is kind of an important fuel for the body, really we don't need added sugars, and it's just adding to kind of that chronic high blood glucose level, which we don't need. And you can actually consume large amounts of sugar by drinking it, and that can lead to weight gain just because you are consuming X amount of sugar and calories. So sugar sweetened beverages is going to be my number 5 to stay away from if you are trying to lower your A1C.
Right on. Sugar sweetened beverage. This is all right. So now there are some foods that the exam roomies are kind of also wondering about why they may have been omitted from the list. Let's start with Liz Kelly, 1239, watching right now on Facebook. She's wondering about what about nuts and seed butters, particularly tahini, which is found in a lot of hummus, by the way. So those are definitely high in fat. Why didn't they make your 5 list?
Yeah, so for exactly that reason, if you are trying to lower your A1C, you are going to want to avoid nut and seed butters. They are, if you think about it, there's 17 grams of fat in 1 tablespoon of peanut butter, right? And we want to keep our total for the day, between 20 and 30 grams. Now, this is if you're actively trying to lower your A1C. And so nut butters are not going to be your friend in that case. Now, a handful of nuts or maybe a tablespoon of chia seeds, that is something okay. That's not going to throw you into insulin resistance. But these nut butters, if you already have a lot of fat in your diet, they are not going to be your friend. And you just want to kind of reduce them as much as you can. Now, I know hummus has some tahini, so just look for hummus that has the lower amount of total fat, because then you know that the tahini and the seed butter that's in there, they're not putting too much in there for you.
Right on. Let me ask you about this. Thumbs up, thumbs down. TG at 1241 just wrote in. I love this. All caps here. Chuck, I finally tried the peanuts, dark chocolate, and dates candy bar thing. That was introduced to us by Dr. Will Bolsowitz. He said, look, you split it, you put a little bit of dark chocolate chips in there with some peanuts, and it tastes just like a Snickers bar. The man wasn't lying. Again, there's some fat there because of the peanut content, but if somebody's looking to lower their A1C, would that get the thumbs up or thumbs down from you?
So was that peanut butter or
No, just straight dry
peanut?
roasted unsalted peanuts.
So peanuts, they have tons of fiber in them. And if you're only having, you're having 1 or 2 of those little Snicker bites, then I would say it's not going to harm you. But peanuts don't make my foods to eat list, my best foods to eat list. But peanuts, they are not going to be there's plenty of foods that are worse off for insulin sensitivity. So I would give that one, if that's what's going to be your sweet, whole dry roasted peanuts have tons of fiber and other nutrients in it as well. So I would give that one a thumbs up, but it might not make my top 5.
All right, let's see if we can get a couple of other quickies here. Logan at 1234 is wondering, because now we've brought fat into the conversation a lot today, what about making sure that we're getting enough healthy fats for brain health? So what are some good options for us there that won't necessarily make our A1C fluctuate in a way that we don't want?
So yes, there are some studies that show DHA and EPA, which are types of fats, omega-3s, that they're showing some benefits to brain health. But really, we don't need that much. And you can actually get omega-3s from green leafy vegetables and other vegetables. You can also find plant-based sources of omega-3s in chia seeds, flax seeds, and walnuts. Now, remember, I said, we want to keep those at a minimum. So maybe a tablespoon a day would get you over the RDA for omega-3s for the day. And if you feel like that's something you want to do for your brain health, then I say, thumbs up, 1 tablespoon of flaxseed or chia seeds. You can do that. You can also see your doctor and see if your DHA and EPA is low. And if it's low, maybe you take an algae supplement, so a plant-based omega-3 supplement. But as you see them, they're tiny. It's not the same as drizzling olive oil. Oh, I'm drizzling olive oil all over my salad because I need my omega-3s. So, if you work with your doctor, if they say, you have low DHA or EPA in your blood and you feel like you want to take an algae supplement, then that's fine. If you want to get it through Whole Foods, you can take a tablespoon of flax or chia seed. That's going to get you to the RDA for the day.
All right. And Philip is looking for clarity on the sugar-sweetened beverages, wondering whether you're talking about both diet and regular sodas here?
So diet sodas are not going to spike your glucose, right? And they're also not going to be counted as total calories for the day. But the research is coming out, especially last summer, the World Health Organization came out with, they actually saw that individuals who chose diet soda over regular soda, it did not improve their diabetes risk. It did not improve their obesity or other chronic diseases. So the World Health Organization actually came out, against the the diet and the artificial sweeteners. So I kind of go along with that. It's like, okay, you might not be spiking your blood glucose, but we actually see in other studies that kind of ricochets and people end up craving more sweets at the end of the day or later in the day when they've had a Diet Coke and their body didn't get the sugar that it thought it was getting when it tasted sweet foods. So I would say avoid all soda, whether it's regular or diet.
What about just plain sparkling water like a Perrier? I know that Dr. Neal Barnard is very big on Perrier, just plain sparkling water.
Sparkling water gets a thumbs up. I think water is like the best liquid you can drink, other than maybe some green tea, but sparkling water, that's good to go.
And what about adding just a splash of a little bit of fruit juice in there? I know that can be a sugar bomb if you drink fruit juice just straight up. But what about just a splash? Could you do that? Or is it better to maybe just slice up a little bit of that orange and then put that in there, that orange slice in there, as opposed to just a little quarter cup or so of orange juice?
Yeah, I think everything is on a degree, right? So you have water being maybe the ideal.
Uh-oh. I think we might have lost our fair friend Steph, but that's all right. I feel like we got a lot of great information out of her today, and we're running out of time. So that is kind of an abrupt ending to the show, but I think that we can leave it there. I want to take a second also to say hi to Wendy, who is joining us from California. Said it's their first time joining us live. Loves the podcast, the great content. Says that she is learning so much. She says that the team here is just absolutely amazing. So, Wendy, thank you so very much for joining us. And I want to say thank you to Stephanie McBurnett for being here and raising our health IQs in incredible ways. I feel like we learned a lot still to get to. I feel like I didn't get a chance to ask her about avocado. We talked about coconut. So would avocado have the same type of issues there? I don't know, but we will bring her back to get you an answer for that. In the meantime, if you happen to be in the Washington, D.C. area, a huge event is coming. March 26th. Mark your calendars now. The Power Foods Revolution. This is to celebrate the launch of Dr. Neal Barnard's new book, The Power Foods Diet, which I happen to have a copy of right here. It comes out March 26th, The Power Foods Diet. And you can join us at the National Press Club, just blocks from the White House, for an unforgettable night with Dr. Barnard, myself, Chef Dustin Harder, who helped create a lot of the recipes for the book. He's going to be there, plus Stefanie Ignoffo from Plantspiration, who went on a whole food plant-based diet, lost a ton of weight, along with her entire family. They're all going to be there for an unforgettable, incredibly amazing night, and you can be there to join us for a special taping of the Exam Room Live. So head over to pcrm.org/events to secure your seat today. There also is a link in the episode notes. Hope to see you there March 26th, and everybody who gets a ticket gets a book that night. So come on, we got your copy waiting for you. Dr. Barnard would be happy to sign it. The Power Foods Diet and the Power Foods Revolution, coming to the National Press Club on March 26th. But for today, my friends, that is all the time that we have. I want to thank you again for joining us and raising your health IQs, and to the crew behind the scenes, thank you guys for making the magic happen. And for everyone here at the Physicians Committee, I am the weight loss champion, Chuck Carroll. We will talk to you again very soon. But until then, keep it plant-based.